Alright everybody, so if you paid attention to that clip, you'll notice that we are on a search and seizure mission. It's called What's That Noise?
Place your bets on the phone.
So far, we've pulled this valve cover, checked to make sure all the valves are moving, push rods are moving, rockers are moving. We scoped all four of these cylinders with the bore scope. There's no evidence of anything inside the cylinder bouncing around. So now we're switching over to the passenger side and do the same thing and see what we find. So we'll get back to you.
Many messages and phone calls later, we've kind of narrowed things down to a couple things. A is a cracked flex plate, which, based off of other YouTube videos we have watched, it's kind of the same noise. The only other option that we see is something that is still in an intake port and hasn't made its way to the cylinder, because one scope later, we have scoped all of these cylinders and have found nothing physically in the cylinder. So what we're doing now is I got to put the valve cover and the throttle body back together, and then I also got to put this exhaust back up because to get that stupid dust shield out of here, had to drop that. And then once that is all back together, we're gonna start it without this dust shield thing and listen down here without the torque converter bolted down. Yes. And A, if the sound changes, we kind of narrowed it down to this flex plate. And B, if you come down here and it's loud right here, it also kind of narrows it down to the flex plate. However, if the sound doesn't change and it doesn't sound like it's from down here, it's kind of got to be up in the intake ports. And if it's not that either, we're going to take off the serpentine belt too to make sure that there's nothing up there that's making a noise, which we don't think it is because it's kind of coming from back here. So we'll get the valve cover and the throttle body back installed and start it and see what happens, I guess. Okay, hit it. As you heard in the clip that I probably put in this video, it still sounds like Woody the Woodpecker's having a field day in there. And it was louder from the bottom than it is from the top. And the rear main is leaking. And Kevin still seems to think that it could be bottom end damage. We disagree, but either way, whether it be the cracked flex plate or bottom end damage, to pull the motor, training has to come out. To fix bottom end damage, or to fix the rear main, transmission has to come out. And to fix the flex plate, transmission has to come out. So there is no viable solution where this transmission does not have to come out.
Correct.
So I guess that's where we begin. Well, trainee cross member. His next thing is gonna go to get the transfer case out, and after that it should be a little easier to get the trainee out. But in the videos I've watched, this transfer case is kind of a bear to get out with the torsion bar cross member here, and I'm not taking out this cross member, ain't no way. But you can finagle it out, and to get it out you have to move this, but even with moving it, it's still kind of a pain, so I'm just gonna get rid of the whole cross member for now, which is gonna have to come out anyway to get the transmission out, so be back in a sec. Okay, I've dropped the Y pipe here for bell housing clearance for one, but for right now there's more to get these bolts out of the transfer case. And it'll make a little more room to work in here. But somehow, by the grace of God, or something, all 3 of these bolts came out fine. And we had the manifold bolts out yesterday. But I don't understand how that's even possible, because that never happens, but apparently it did. So, once I get this transfer case out, yet again, I'll be back with you. Okay, transfer case has been removed. It did. Wasn't as much of a bear as I thought it was. Based off of other videos I watched, it was still kind of a pain because the trainee jack that we have doesn't go low enough, so kind of had to finagle it off of there to slide it out from under the truck. But
what are your pronouns?
What's that supposed to mean?
Trainee.
Oh, okay. And the they-them lines have been disconnected from the they-them transmitter. So.
Okay. Enough fun.
Oh, and we took out that autometer sending unit thing that we had in the bottom of this pan, just so that way it doesn't get broken. I'm gonna slide the cross member back in here temporarily so that I can get this jack stand out and move it up to the oil pan to support the back of the motor whenever the trainee comes out. All that we should have left from here should be the shift linkage, bell housing bolts, and a whole bunch of wire connectors. And even the transfer case alone had a whole bunch of wires. Oh, dipstick tube. But then this thing should be ready to go out of here after it comes off the dowel pins. Well, transmission's out. Unfortunately, have not seen any flex plate damage. And I know it sounds weird to say unfortunately, but it's kind of what we were hoping for. Which means that kind of came out for no reason. Well, actually, yeah, it did, because we needed to change the rear main. But we'll get back with you whenever we get the flex plate off and can actually examine it still on the other side. But on this side, I don't see any signs of cracking or damage. A couple days later, flex plate's off. Happy belated Easter, by the way. If you look at some of these spots on here, it's a little shinier than what we think it should be.
Yeah,
and after watching some YouTube videos, people have starters that fail, and whenever they come to retract, the mechanism that actually brings the gear back in fails, and then it just kind of does whatever it wants.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes the same noise. However, after inspecting this a little more, I don't see any cracks here.
Yeah, there's no visible cracks in here.
Other than this weird line thing, which I don't understand. Or it's where it's sat on the crank, probably. We haven't seen any cracks, and none of these welds on the ring gear look
no, but these teeth
bad.
Got a lot of fresh chew marks and a lot of little metal shavings.
Which I've seen on other YouTube videos, and actually more heard. Motors typically stop in 4 spots if it's a 4-stroke, and obviously it's a 4-stroke. And it's kind of in all its 4 locations, but it...
I don't know. Radiac starter and see what's going on with it.
That is going to be the next stop. Well, got the starter out now, and it's very loose. Like, whenever it's retracted, there's a lot of slop in the gear.
This one is not retracted. It's slopping around on the shaft. Pretty.
And it seems to be okay, in quotes, retracting. But
it's making a lot of noise in there too.
Has anyone else seen this place before? I think I have. More Kevin conversations later. And actually, no, let me back up. Took the upper plenum off and scoped the intake ports to make sure that there was nothing banging around in there and they're free. Which means nothing I screwed up. Yay! Secondly, he said to take off the valve covers and run it to see if maybe there's a broken valve spring or something. I doubt it because it's louder down below than it is up here. But to cover bases, might as well. So I'm gonna slap this upper
To
plenum.
verify, down below externally,
Down
internally.
right. So now I'm gonna slap the upper plenum back on here again, and gonna jack up the back of the motor so that way it's not so leany backy. And we're gonna fire it up without that transmission installed. Anyway, and we'll report back, I suppose. Well, upper plenum back together. I also put flex plate and starter back on, and I jacked up the back of the motor a little bit. I left the serpentine belt off just in case it's something up here that could be making a noise, which I doubt, because it sounds like it's from the back. It's gonna be really loud and can hear each other think, because there's no exhaust on it right now. So we're gonna let this thing run, but not forever, because A, no water pump, B, no alternator, and C, we're gonna get deaf if we don't. So
Johnny.
okay. Well, started this thing. I didn't have my phone out because I was trying to look for stuff. So I only hit like $2,000, and I think it's because of 2 vacuum leaks. Because as you can see, I now have the PCV plugged in temporarily there, and there's another port for the other side for a breather that's after the throttle body that I plugged with that piece of line for a heater hose with a bolt in the end. So it should make a difference.
However,
yeah, whenever it was running, I heard the noise, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. So either something self-clearanced, or I don't know. Well, as I said, vacuum leaks are fixed, and now we're gonna light it back off again and see if A, it's not gonna idle at $2,000 again, and B, if anything happened, because I'm curious to know if it's still gonna be making the same noises.
ready?
Yep. Sounded kind of more on this side. During the oil last night, scoped the oil pan. Didn't see any visual chunks of anything laying in the bottom. It's hard to see the rod caps and bearing caps to see if any nuts or anything fell off, but I didn't see anything from what I could see, and it's hard to film scoping that thing with one hand. Next, honestly, what we're gonna do is, apparently it's a noted problem on these with lifters failing on high mileage applications, so we're gonna pull all the rockers and pull all the push rods and send the scope down each one to look at each individual lifter to make sure that there's no signs of anything that happened to them. And honestly, after that, we're running out of things to check. Now, whenever I take each valve off of its thing, I'm going to put it in a bag for each cylinder and label it like cylinder 2 intake. And I'm going to take each rocker, bolt, the cupped washer thingy, push rod, and just put it in all of its own bag, so that way it goes exactly back where it came out. Now, each push rod, guide plate, rocker, bolt has been removed from each head, and now I'm going to send the borescope down through each push rod hole to examine each lifter and make sure that none of them let loose. And I will say, for whatever reason, It seems like there was more oil that came out of each push rod on this side than there was on the other. I'm not sure if that's a sign of anything, but I guess we'll find out. We've taken more than enough of this truck apart, and it's scattered throughout various different places in the garage. And even started making a pile out there. So we just decided to pull the motor, because by the time we figure this out, there ain't gonna be much of a truck left. So we just made the executive decision to yoink and put it on a stand. After a backroom cleanse, which still is not complete, I'm gonna start doing roughly the same things that we did on the S10, and start by getting things ready to remove the core support, which is going to be a little more challenging on this thing because you have the AC lines and training lines and stuff that you got to disconnect, whereas in the S10 you didn't. But for right now, we're going to start with this bumper, which the grill has to come off first.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Many gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons of fluids later, and many bolts and sawzawing and death wheeling and stuff. Core support is no more. So now we have plenty of room to just pick up the motor and roll the truck out from underneath it. It's the best way to do it, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, at this point, yes.
But obviously we still have more things to disconnect before that happens, but it's a good starting point for tomorrow, because it's getting dark, crappy, and it's almost time for dinner, and I need a desperate shower. So, be back tomorrow.
The next day.
Many bolts, many wire connectors, and stuff later. It's out. Truck is currently out there. Tomorrow I'm gonna get some degreaser and stuff to spray down the engine bay with and hit it like we did on the S10. Kind of the same with this thing. So next we're gonna get this on a stand and stuff and things and stuff.
Ethan,
Yep.
what you doing?
Well, I'm using our last piece of cardboard that we originally had. We're using as a creeper to catch any spillages from this motor that are going to be on the floor whenever we are disassembled out.
Sounds like a plan.
Alright, we have scoped every hole in this thing, exhausted every option to figure out what's wrong with this. So we just went ahead and pulled the motor.
Yeah, and we also listened to 15 different people say it was 15 different things,
That
and
too.
everything that we did, everything that we checked, revealed nothing. So, unfortunately, the last thing is to pull the engine so we can dissect it like a frog in biology.
Here it sits. So
And there it
next
is.
episode will be dissecting this.
Ripping things apart, and we'll walk through this stuff together. So, stay tuned.